Okay. Blue White breakdown. Bob Flounders, Dave Jones. Penn State's on fire, Dave. 2 in a row.
I
23
give up. I give up, dude. I
7
mean,
over Rutgers.
I
Had it all
don't,
the way.
I don't understand anything about this season. I give up trying to, we don't really want to predict anyway, but
I don't know about that.
this has been the most unpredictable season I can think of. You just, have we seen that team all year? And I know it's Rutgers, but I've watched Rutgers this season, and I haven't seen that Rutgers team all year either. It's almost like the Maryland game a year ago, where it's like, oh, we're playing our little brothers again. Yeah, this'll be easy, and both teams believe it. I don't know. They just dominated scrimmage. There were little points in the game, little turnovers, little things that happened. The prayer that was thrown up there by Vedral that was caught, where you would say normally
should have been a shutout, Dave.
This could swing the momentum, but in this game, that constant of Penn State dominating scrimmage on both sides of the ball kept it completely under control the whole way, really.
7 Big Ten meetings between these two. Rutgers has 39 points in 7 meetings.
This is
39.
If you weren't paying attention to Rutgers this season, this looked like Chris Ash Rutgers, and we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that all year under Greg Schiano. This looked like the old Rutgers, and they have not played like that. Even against Ohio State, which they lost 49-27, they kept fighting at the end. This team looked like a shot fighter at this point, and maybe 2 weeks before the end of the season they were. I don't know, but Penn State played fundamental football, really for the first time this year. I thought, even including Michigan, they played wonderful blocking, tackling. Dare I say, Paterno-esque kind of football, where you just asphyxiate the other team.
Yeah, Dave, my take is these Penn State Nittany Lions, they know how to beat up some Rutgers Scarlet Knights. They do it time and time again. We took the cheese. I know what you said. They had looked like a different team. Speaking of looking like a different team, Penn State on the road versus Penn State at home. Tell me why.
Right. You had that right. You've got that right.
Tell me why it is. I don't understand it.
I don't know, man. I got no idea. Every venue's the same to me.
No.
What this? Frankly, this looked like Rutgers at any point. Where the sound effects were louder than the fans. Is this different than any other Rutgers game? The point is that the everything's kind of been evened out, other than Ohio State, who's just better than everyone else.
Yeah.
The rest of the league is kind of like this amorphous mass where everyone has the bottom of the barrel has risen up, the top has sunk down, and you don't know what to expect from one week to the next. And now, by the way, Purdue is losing a whole bunch of guys. You saw what they did against Nebraska.
They got beat.
Yeah, could you have seen that coming based on what they've done this year? But Purdue lost a bunch of guys who just opted out. They just said, why are we doing this? We want to be home for Christmas, apparently, and opted out. So this is like no other season we've ever experienced before.
And as we do this, Dave, Illinois is shutting out Iowa 14-0 So your point.
Yeah. Well, we kind of picked that. We picked that one, but I feel like we're picking stuff by luck. It's just pure serendipity when we get something right.
Can we talk about? Can I just say I want to say a couple of things. What I really liked and what I didn't like. I like the fact that Penn State's defense. Yes, it's Rutgers and Michigan, but they're coming to play in short yardage. That 4th and 1 stop early in the game kind of set a little tone. And I think Rutgers was 1 for 4 on 4th down, 3 for 14 on 3rd down. Kudos to the defense. They look a little bit quicker. I know they're not playing offenses like Maryland's and Ohio State's now, but I think there's been some improvement. Dave, I just want to say I am not wild about this Penn State red zone offense again. And that, Dave, we were both talking about it. We were texting back and forth. 20-7. It's 4th and 3 at and it's I think it's early in the 4th quarter, and they go for it from like the Rutgers 35 instead of punting. Don't get it.
Well,
Kind of leave the door open. I just
well,
didn't
yeah,
like it.
yeah. When we were talking, the defense had control of the game, and they did, You were for just pound the ball, pound the ball.
Yeah,
The defense, if you run a low risk offense, the defense is not going to give this game away
right.
because they were just too dominant. They were running to the ball. They were tackling well. The DBs played terrific, but so did the guys up front.
The big boys.
And the linebackers didn't suffer too much from their prior liabilities. I wanted to say this, and I don't want to forget to say it.
Okay.
I think it's pretty clear at this point that the lack of contact practice hurt this team. It hurt everyone, but I think Penn State was probably more conservative than a lot of schools in how much contact they allowed. This team did not block or tackle well early. They're doing it better now. Conversely, and I asked Franklin about this, I think Penn State's handling of COVID, while conservative, has been very effective. I mean, you can't deny that. They've had no major outbreaks at all. And I think under that atmosphere, it makes it easier for kids to buy in when it's not chaotic. We're seeing
Not as scary.
Yeah, well, it's not scary, not chaotic. Think about this. Kids are thinking, and I've got a 21-year-old in college right now. He's on his own now. He's making his own decisions. He's in his apartment in Pittsburgh, back with his friends. He came home for Thanksgiving. I didn't really want him to go back there, neither did his mother, but he's got 2 different jobs. He's doing great. And he wanted to go back there and do 2 more weeks. Well, that's his prerogative. But under these players' situation, they're being told what to do. In both situations, you're sending kids out into the world where they can, the outbreak is crazy right now. I mean, it's out of control. If somebody gets COVID at this point, they can't come home for Christmas. Right. I mean, think about that. We're on the edge now of 3 weeks where if you go any farther and you get it, there's a question whether you've got to quarantine during Christmas. So teams that haven't really bought in with their program, with their coach, they're opting out, man. Purdue is obvious evidence in that respect. Penn State seems to have bought in. So I guess Penn State deserves credit for both their COVID administration and the way they're handling it, the conservative way they're doing it, because the evidence is that Penn State's on board while some other schools really aren't.
I think another thing, Dave, that Penn State deserves credit for, and James Franklin and his staff, is getting Kevon Lee in their recruiting class, because looks like he is a pretty legit player as a true freshman. I don't think you can feed that guy the ball enough right now. I think he's their best. The way that they have to play to win, Dave, and they got to grind on people because they're just not explosive. He's got to be the guy the rest of the way. Devin Ford did some very nice things. He had a touchdown run, but a different kind of player than Kevon Lee when they were backed up at the 2-yard line and it was still a little bit in doubt. They turned to him over and over and over again, and the guy does nothing but get positive yardage. He had a big run there. I just think he does not play like a true freshman anymore, and I think I've seen enough to call the election. I want to see more of Kevon Lee and a little less of Devin Ford.
Well, any of them, even Holmes, can be useful if you get a push like the offensive line did today. We haven't seen that before. We haven't seen a push where guys are 3 yards in the backfield where there's really no pressure on Clifford. It makes it so much easier for Clifford to be what he really should be, which is a game manager. He can make some possession passes, even missed a couple of those, but he played pretty well in this game because he's not under pressure that he can't evade. He can't evade serious pressure. He's been under it before. So the offensive line makes so many things so much easier, including Kevon Lee. But man, if you get a push like that, this is what we expected all year. We might see it again against Michigan State. It's reasonable to think that they're going to have their post-Ohio State hangover too. Don't forget. And we're looking at 3 and 4, and depending on who they play out of the West, if they don't, it looks like they're not going to get Iowa or Indiana or Wisconsin. So what do you have to be afraid of over there when you get down to Purdue and Nebraska or whoever? They're not going to get Northwestern either, I don't think. So if they get the number 4 team, what would that be? I don't know. Depends.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's things are like you say, things are kind of topsy turvy, especially in the Big Ten West right now. Dave, without throwing cold water on this offensive line, because I was one of the guys at the start that thought they have some NFL players for sure on this offensive line. The fact that they did it against Michigan and Rutgers, I mean, how do you gauge true development? And how do you gauge the level of competition? Penn State kind of got it in their minds that they're always going to kick the crap out of Rutgers because that's all they've ever done. They weren't, obviously, they just went out and took care of business. I just don't know how much of it is pure development, physical development, mental development, and how much of it is maybe they faced 2 teams that, at the first sign of trouble. I know they didn't do it. Rutgers didn't do it all year, but I don't know. They didn't seem that spunky to me today. Rutgers. Maybe it's because Penn State knocked it out of him, like Matt Millen kept saying on the broadcast, and he was delighted in that. But
wasn't he?
He was having himself a grand old time in the broadcast booth. Good for him. But I just don't know how to assess this offensive line after these last 2 performances.
Well, nobody does. But look at it this way. This is the way I look at it. In a year where, like I said, a lot of teams are looking around and saying, "What are we doing? What are we doing this for?" They're not. And you would have thought 2 weeks ago we could see a disaster.
Correct.
Well, that's what we were thinking. So
yep.
I don't care that it's Rutgers or Michigan. Michigan has packed it in. They did pack it in.
Yeah.
Now they're in quarantine. They're in total lockdown with Ohio State on deck. That's going to be that looks like it can't be anything but a disaster. To me, it doesn't matter that much. It only matters that Penn State has gotten its mojo back. It doesn't matter against 2. And I'm telling you, I've watched Rutgers all year. They've been a very fun team to watch. And today they weren't fun in the slightest. No, I mean, they won that Purdue game 37-30. And they played lights out, wild, hair on fire football the whole time. That was just last week, man. Penn State did a pretty good job on them. They did a number on them.
Correct. They did. I agree with you. I was really one of the things I'm going to be writing about is if you're going to look at the stat sheet for Penn State's defense, you're not going to see a lot from their defensive tackles. One guy had a couple tackles. Another guy had no tackles. They didn't have their top reserve, Hakeem Beamon. He didn't play today. They only used 3 of them, really. Fred Hanser was the other one. But, man, they were impossible to move in the middle, and they played a lot of the game in the Rutgers backfield, and they freed up those linebackers and those defensive ends to cause a lot of problems. And, the defensive tackles, obviously that Maryland game, they got pushed around. They didn't play well against Ohio State. We talked about that. But they certainly more than held their own in this game. I thought they were a big reason why that Penn State's defense this was obviously their best game of the year, I think, the Penn State.
Yeah, and that's what
had a shutout.
That's where it all began, because they really should have, because that one the touchdown pass was a total prayer. It was a freak.
Yeah.
He just threw that out there and it happened to go his way. You don't throw balls like that going against your body, throwing them up in the end zone. I mean, it was a gift.
Yeah.
But the defensive line is where it began, and the thing is, these guys have not played very well all year. All of a sudden, they're being gap attentive. And you know who we didn't hear from at all, who needs a little bit of a head of steam because he's not very big, from Rutgers' side? Who do we not hear a bit of?
Well,
Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, he had 100 yards against Penn State, I think, last year.
He is a spark plug for them. He's nitroglycerin, man. We didn't hear from
4 yards.
We didn't hear from him. We didn't hear from Aaron Cruikshank. They've had guys having momentum, a head of steam, getting to scrimmage before, and that just didn't happen. No one could get ahead of steam, and Pacheco really needs it because he's not the biggest guy in the world. He needs to get a little momentum going in the line to be effective. And the defensive line didn't. The defensive line not only kept the linebackers in the back 7 clean, but they completely eliminated any momentum for Vedral, for Johnny Langan when they were trying that nonsense. All the stuff that they have been able to do this year, they couldn't do. And if you haven't watched Rutgers all year, then I'm telling you, this has been a completely different team. And if you just turned it on for this game, well, you're saying, well, what's the big deal? They beat Rutgers. No, that's not true. This is a much better Rutgers team, has been. It just looked like the old Rutgers team.
Dave, did you ever think, because you were sitting next to me in 2014 in the press box in Piscataway when Rutgers went up 10-0 on James Franklin and Bob Shoop in the first half of James Franklin's first season. It was like the third game of the Franklin era, I think. They go up 10-0. They lose the game 13-10. Did you ever think that 10 points would be a game high in this series for Rutgers?
Well, I didn't coming into this game at all. This team has scored 20 points or more every single game, all against Big Ten competition. I mean, they used to be able to do that against Texas State, in the first game, but not against the Big Ten team. They haven't done that. Last year they averaged 6 points a game in Big Ten competition. This year they're averaging 30. They're averaging 30 in the first 6 games. Their problem has been their defense a lot more than their offense, and Penn State completely shut them down. I've got to say, their wideouts are pretty good. Rutgers' wideouts, and Penn State's corners without Castro Fields, they're just playing lights out. All of a sudden, we've already talked about Joey Porter,
right?
But they got to.
Keaton Ellis played good for sure today.
I'm sorry.
Keaton Ellis, he was back. He was the fourth corner today. He started. Daquan Hardy could have made a play on that touchdown. He didn't, but he
kind of got stuck behind that guy, and he didn't.
He's not. I think he's going to be a pretty decent player. Marquise Wilson has his moments. You're right. They've got
Brisker was around.
He's a safety. Yeah, he's an athletic safety. But I think that I don't think saying anything outside the box. Tariq Castro-Fields was their best corner at the start of the year. He hasn't played in the last 4 games. I'm beginning to think that maybe we are probably not going to see Tariq Castro-Fields again. He always warms up because our boy Joe Hermick always shoots him. He's always looks good in warmups, but that he doesn't play. So I just wonder if maybe he's kind of made a decision maybe about his future, and maybe he's just going to help Penn State in another way.
I don't have any problem with anybody doing that. I don't have any problem with, for instance, the Purdue guys that I was talking about. This is such a weird situation.
Right.
And you've got to consider your family. If you don't have confidence in the university's protocol, if you don't think you're protected, you got to get out of there, man. I mean, they're unpaid laborers being asked to do this. You got to think about your own family. Right. So I got
it's not just practicing against your teammates. You're practicing against another team, and you're just not sure what they're doing, on a weekly basis.
You can't know. So all credit to Penn State, like I said, for keeping everyone on board. And we don't know exactly who they've lost to COVID, but we know their numbers overall in the athletic department, and it's been almost spotless. I just got a very funny text that I can't tell you on the air, but
I bet you I know who it's from.
Yes, I think you probably do.
I know what it's about as well, but we're going to keep that.
The guy that was said, he was running like okay, all right. Sorry.
He caught himself. That's all that matters, David. He caught himself, or else
I told him it was a great save. He just responded,
Any other? We got a couple minutes here yet, Dave. Any other takeaways on your end from either this game or maybe the fact that Penn State's still got to play Michigan State plus allegedly a Champions Week game? We won't even talk about the possibilities of a 10th game, but they still could play 2 more games. They could still get to 4 and 5 even if they don't play a bowl game. If they win 4 games in a row, anything change on your end, or what would you like? I would just like to see them. I would just like to see them be a little bit more efficient on the coaching sideline when it comes to game management. And I just want to see something different in the red zone. Maybe they just can't do it, but they're just settling too many times for field goals. It just seems like once they get inside the 10, it's very hard for them to get in the end zone. They did it once with the Devin Ford walk-in touchdown, but they also had to settle, for a couple of field goals again.
Well, for all those years, we had Trace McSorley.
Yeah.
For 3 years being a threat that you had to monitor. And we don't have it anymore. Levis is strong, but he's not a threat that you have to worry about squirting up the middle into the end zone from the 20. You just don't.
Right.
And they have been such a station-to-station offense.
Correct.
People, if you haven't been back there and seen the field from like the 6-yard line, it's like everything's compressed when you're trying to throw in there. They don't have any Chris Godwin. They don't have any guy who's going to go up who's big. I mean, Parker Washington has been great at going to get balls, but he's not big. It's hard for them also to take a top off a defense and score from the 30 or 40 because they don't have anybody who really gets separation. Dotson is a very good receiver, but he's not going to blow by anybody.
Yeah,
they have limitations. Yeah, they have limitations in all these different respects. They are what they are, and I don't know that they can improve until they get different personnel.
All right, so 2-5, 2 wins in a row. They are 7-0 in Big Ten play against the Scarlet Knights, whether it's Greg Schiano, Chris Ash, or who was the guy before Chris Ash?
Oh,
they ran him out of there.
All I can think of is Doug Graber, but that was way before Chris Ash.
He's the guy that almost fought Joe Paterno, I think, but I can't remember the guy before him. Oh, was it Flood? Kyle Flood.
Kyle Flood. Very good. Very good. Very good. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! Tim Crow. Woo!
Yeah. I guess we'll just see what happens against Michigan State. I mean, the inclination now, but they're going to play a home game, Dave. The inclination is to pick them to win handily against Michigan State, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think it's just one of those things where if they can win the game, fine. But it just seems like they play their best football away from Beaver Stadium. Maybe they'll be wrong.
We've been wrong almost every week.
Like 9 times.
Yeah, I mean, I was right about Indiana. I think I was right about Nebraska, and I don't think I've really had a read on these guys correctly.
You picked the Schianos today. You did.
Yeah, I did. I mean, based on what we saw from them, you had to. So I think we're talking about they can't possibly play anyone after the Michigan State game other than Illinois, Purdue, Nebraska, Minnesota.
Yeah, and I don't think you can play a regular season team in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So Nebraska would be out.
Nebraska would be out. So we're talking about Illinois, Purdue, Minnesota. All 3 of those, Illinois would be tougher than people think. Yeah. Illinois is a very good running team, and they seem like they've bought in. And Brandon Peters is playing very well for them at quarterback since he came back from COVID protocol. So, but the other 2, they look like probably wins, and Michigan State looks like probably a win. So yeah, with the lack of bowl restrictions this year, it's possible. Do you want to go to a bowl this year? I don't know. How about the Boca Raton Bowl? How about that, Bob? You want to go down there?
I think we're all day to day, Dave, right now at this time. And speaking of that, I hope you have a great Sunday with Kaiser. Any plans with Kaiser?
You know what I do on Sunday.
I know, but I mean, there's a couple hours in the day where you
nothing but power. All he wants is
all power rankings.
All he wants is his run, and then he turns into this. Kaiser.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
He's finally being a good boy.
All right.
All right. You guys
have a good rest of the weekend. That's it for the Blue White Breakdown, the Rutgers edition. Penn State 2-5, looking for 3-5.